Why do you think your book has touched so many hearts all across the world?
You know, I've asked myself that question a lot because it's really humbling to hear from people in the far reaches and have them respond so personally. And I think that I've A, touched on something that's universal, and B, when I was writing the book, it's a personal story, and I was writing from such a place of love, you know. I just was kind of pouring love onto the page, and I think for some sort of weird, magical reason that kind of translates into the reading experience. People feel it, and there's just something there. I know that sounds really ooh, but I don't know how else to explain it.
Is there a particular way of writing for young adults, or does it not matter? Is it writing?
Yeah, I mean, I make the distinction that I write about young people. I don't write young stories. So I think that there are a lot of young adult authors who go back to their high school years and relive those, and those are great stories. But for me, what I'm usually writing about are things that are on my mind now as an adult. And, you know, usually there's some deep things that I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about love and death and identity. Just for whatever reason, the characters that arrive in my head to tell these stories, they're between the ages of like 17 and 22.
You picked music, and the music is kind of love. It's like kind of love, but it takes you to a different dimension. Can you comment on that?
Music is very emotional, right? It's like you hear a song and you have this incredible emotional reaction to it, and you don't know why. I think it's like this emotional shortcut. So these characters are musicians. I fell in love with a musician. I married a musician, so that's certainly part of it. But then, you know, there's a lot of songs mentioned in the book, there's a lot of songs in the actual film, but because I think for a lot of people, music just does that. I mean, that's been true, I think, since time immemorial, that we've used to kind of access our feelings.
You mentioned that you married a musician. I was going to say you really understand the culture of musicians. Have you immersed yourself in it?
I mean, I immersed myself in it in terms of like the rock musicians, like that I was the girlfriend for a long time of a guy in a band, so like I know what it was like to go to these shows, and I know what it was like to hang around after these shows and, you know, load up the van and go on tour and things like that. In terms of the classical, I just had to kind of imagine that. For the second book, I actually got a really well-known, beautiful cellist, Lisa Weilerstein, to help me out with some of that. And it was wonderful because she wound up being, and if I say, when Adam and Mia go on their date, she's the cellist. And so I got to see her shoot those scenes, which was just magic.
Were you concerned that somebody's going to take your baby and make a monster out of it?
I have to admit that when it was first optioned, that was just kind of the assumption, like the default, like, well, yeah, they're going to make a movie of it and it's going to be terrible. Especially because I didn't understand how they would take this particular book. But then as the process moved forward, it kept getting good. You know, we had a great screenplay from Shauna Cross, and then R.J. Cutler eventually came aboard as the director, and R.J.'s vision was just so dead on. And I just knew at that point that it was going to be actually what I wanted. And then we had this cast, and it was the translation, it was the emotional translation of the book and the characters that I wanted. So I was wrong.